you want the sinker to separate away from the worm when the fish jumps like that, because when you separate it away from the worm, the fish doesn't have near the leverage with just a hook and a worm when they come up to bite the bait to throw it. But if you have a lead weight in the fish's mouth when they bite it like that, where it doesn't come loose, it has more leverage. So when that fish comes up like that and tries to throw the bait, they have a lot more chance to throw it with that bobber stopper in there. And another thing is look how big that bobber stopper is there. That's an added strike detractor, because you figure when this worm is sitting on the bottom like that and a bass comes nose down and this bass is looking at this worm from like an inch away, that's just something else that's not real to him. And even, a lot of people say, well, that doesn't make that big of a difference. Little details add up. This is another thing that adds up about this. And another thing, this hook is too big. Most people have the wrong size hook. You don't want to use overkill. This is a 4/0 hook in a 10-inch worm, and it's still too big. Look at how much visual detractor you have from this hook. So this ought to be like a 2 or 3/0 hook in this particular worm. And on top of that, this is the wrong hook. Never ever use an offset or an EWG hook in a worm or a creature bait. A lot of people are gonna say, Randy, that's all I've used. I had no problems with it. I'm telling you guys right now, I'm gonna show you the right way to rig it, but it's not with an EWG. In my opinion, an EWG is sort of like something a first grader would use in a plastic worm. And I'll explain to you why with that. It's user friendly. That's why a lot of people use it. You don't want this. And finally, look at how the hook's in this bait right here. This hook has actually been rigged wrong, because on every worm, you have a seam in the worm. And the seam is in line with the curl tail, if it's a curl tail worm. So like on this worm here, I've hooked this worm and hooked the hook in the flat part of it, and it's not on the seam. But if you take this and you rig it where you put it in the little seam along the side where the worm is on the concave side, in other words, like this, the action of the worm is so much better, is what I'm gonna say here. So in other words, this seam, I put the hook right in line with the seam of this curl tail there, and it just gives the worm a lot better. And finally, I'll take the worm off here. You don't ever want to use, I got a Palomar knot here. You can't really see it, but this is a Palomar knot. You don't ever want to use a Palomar knot on a Texas rig worm or creature bait, because the way that a Palomar is tied and the way the line lays